Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream. Change has come to America.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
We lose confidence in our government because we are told that nothing can be done time and time again. And we are tired of hearing that because we know there can be change in this country. Never again should a tragedy of this caliber happen in this country.
Although we are just kids, we understand. We know. We are old enough to understand financial responsibilities. We are old enough to understand why a senator cares about re-election or not. We are old enough to understand why someone might want to discredit us for their own political purposes. But we will not be silenced. It has gone on long enough that just because we are kids, we are not allowed to understand. But trust me, I understand. I was in a closet, locked for 4 hours with people who I would consider almost family, crying and weeping on me, begging for their lives. I understand what it's like to text my parents, goodbye, I might never ever get to see you again, I love you. I understand what it's like to fear for your life. And I don't think we should ever be discredited because of that. I don't think we should ever be silenced because we are just children.
Never again should students have to protest for their lives. Never again should an innocent life be taken while trying to gain an education. And never again should I feel guilty to be alive because Peter, Carmen, Scott, Feist, Hickson, Meadow, Jamie, Alyssa, Joaquin, Helena, Nick, Alana, Cara, Martin, Luke, Gina, and Alex are not. That is why we have organized this revolution. For them. A revolution created by students for students. Because at the end of the day, we're all positive, we're all passionate, and we're all proud to be an Eagle.
For the rest of history, we will now be known as that high school where the biggest high school mass shooting occurred. With other shootings by this point, most people would have forgotten about us. But not this time. My classmates and I are probably the most determined group of people you will ever meet. People are talking about how we aren't serious because we're children, but have you heard my friends talk?
They're not giving up, and they shouldn't. And it's spreading, and it's going viral, and it should. And I am cheering them on and working my damnedest to register every one of these 17-year-olds who will be 18 on November 6th, 2018, to vote. To vote these people out, to get rid of the Marco Rubios, to get rid of the House members, to get rid of the state legislators. I cannot believe that yesterday the Florida House of Representatives made it completely clear to these kids in front of them as they sat in the gallery that they would not even take up a bill for debate. They wouldn't even agree to debate. 71 Republicans voted no in front of these kids. 36, voted yes, and 71 voted no to not even debate whether or not AR-15s belong anywhere in Florida, whether high capacity magazines need to be sold, I just can't even believe it. They had and the kids that saw it said, they were stunned because they're not jaded like we are. They have never, worked their butts off to get legislation changed the way that they're doing now. And so they've not experienced the failure of selfish, self-entitled, power-mad, power-hungry, evil boys voting against everybody else's best interest for the sake of, millions of dollars in contributions and fear of alienating, gun owners. I mean, it's an amazing thing. But what they saw yesterday in the Florida legislature was so powerful for them because it was their first experience in how legislatures fail the people they represent. And they're about to get a hard lesson in, how legislatures don't represent the people that vote for them. And that when it comes time to reelect, most people either don't participate in the election or they say things like, well, I know this guy. You know, I know this guy. This guy's not one of them. This guy's a good Republican. This guy's a good NRA supporter. This guy's a decent, you know, whatever. Or this guy's funny, or I met him and he gave me a corned beef sandwich. Do you know what I mean? And so they just keep voting for the same ridiculous people that do the same ridiculous thing over and over and over again. And these kids are very aware of that fact because they have been educated properly. Now, while the Florida House was unable to bring itself to even vote to debate, to even vote to hear ideas about how to do gun safety or how to prevent an evil boy from having weapons of war, vicious weapons of war, they would not even agree to open the debate. They did apparently feel that pornography was much more urgent as an issue. Now, what you may not know about our legislature here in Florida, it only meets 2 months a year, and it's these 2 months. They're out on March 9th, and that's the end of their year. But they decided that this session, when this happened, and remember, it's Florida. So the Pulse nightclub happened, what, 20 months ago? These are the same people that saw Pulse that can't even make themselves vote to debate whether or not, if you're on the no-fly list, you should be able to get a gun. They can't even agree on that. Now you got these kids who are determined. They're amazing. They're determined. But they felt that pornography was a much more urgent issue, and so they voted yesterday, and they passed a resolution declaring that pornography is a public health risk. Guns, not a public health risk. Porn, public health risk. And what you may not know about Florida is that you cannot make any local gun laws. You know, you have the mayor of South Miami, a guy named Phil Stoddard, who really, really wants to laws specific to Miami. And he's a natural candidate to push through a package of local gun control laws after Parkland, but he can't because the state legislature in Tallahassee banned cities and counties from making their own gun control rules. 7 years ago, the Republican-controlled legislature, signed by Rick Scott, okay, our governor, who, by the way, refuses to go tonight to the town hall where the students are meeting in Sunrise, Florida, which is right down the road, okay, in the BB&T Center. There will be a town hall meeting that the students and everybody from the area is attending this town hall meeting. It will be hosted by CNN. Jake Tapper will host it, and it will be broadcast on live TV. But our governor, Rick Scott, who signs these incredibly sick anti-gun laws, he will not appear. He's not going. He has turned down the invitation to appear. The kids invited Donald Trump. Donald Trump is also not going. He refuses to go and address these kids. But anyway, this is how crazy our laws are. Florida banned cities and counties from having their own local gun laws. 7 years ago, Rick Scott and the Republican-controlled legislature created penalties for mayors if the mayors even tried to ban weapons from parks, like dog parks, public places like that, like, city parks or dog parks. They used to have signs up in the dog parks that said, no guns. They made them take it down. Under penalty of law, a $5,000 fine is personally levied, against a mayor who would, create any sort of restriction on carrying guns in Florida. If he even enforced any gun law, he would get a $5,000 fine and he would be thrown out of office. There are a long, long list of regulations and things that, localities want. But because of this legislature, because of this governor, the locals can't impose any gun restrictions. And that's something that the kids need to know. and along with the $5,000 fine, your career will end. This all happened here in Florida in 2011. It allowed Florida's governor to remove an elected official. Seriously, no impeachment, no nothing. The governor can just remove a mayor or any elected official, any commissioner, any mayor, anybody for violating, for enforcing a ban on guns. One of the county commissioners in Miami-Dade said, "We can't do a damn thing at the city or county level or we'll be punished." Her name's Sally Heyman. She's a former state lawmaker. She's one of 6 Democrats on the 13-member county commission in Miami-Dade. She said, "I've been there with the deaf ears in Tallahassee." Rick Scott signed this into law in June of 2011. He gave the locals, he gave the cities, the mayors of the cities and the counties, 90 days to repeal all the local gun laws, all of them. The cities were then, and the counties were then forced to go out to the parks and all kinds of places and take down the no guns signs. They refused, however, to change any laws, and the NRA literally sued to get these people out of office because they wouldn't change their laws. And the court decided that they didn't have to change the laws. They just can't enforce them. Yep. The NRA sued South Miami over a municipal law in Miami that required locking devices for guns stored within the city limits. And the state court struck down the local ordinance and said that there was a 1987 ban on firearm regulations at the city level. And then in 2011, they made this, we have 67 counties. Not one county can enforce any gun law. Not one. So and let me tell you what the argument they made was. Check this out. You tell me who said this. If in their pursuit of happiness, someone attempts to infringe upon that, they should be afforded the right to protect themselves. Not the students who are in school learning. They aren't afforded the right to live free or to pursue their happiness. No, only the gun owners. That's a Republican who was the co-sponsor of that ridiculous bill. Now, I got to tell you something. Yesterday, I played this for you because, this just killed me, but I played it.
Oh, really? Students are planning a nationwide rally, not left-wing gun control activists using 17-year-old kids in the wake of a horrible tragedy. Hashtag Soros, hashtag resistance, hashtag Antifa, hashtag DNC. Do you think that, Jack? You think? You're serious?
Allison,
you think these kids aren't acting on their own volition?
Allison, I think it's a horrible tragedy, and I'm heartbroken that young people have gone through this, and I hope that it never happens again. But I also know that their sorrow can very easily be hijacked by left-wing groups
but do you think
who have an agenda. Well, let's ask ourselves, do we really think that, and I say this sincerely, do we really think 17-year-olds on their own are going to plan a nationwide rally?
Jack?
I would say to you very plainly that organized groups that are out there like George Soros are always ready to take the charge, and it's kind of like instant rally, instant protest, and those groups are ready to take it,
Jack, I'm sorry, I have to correct you. I was down there. I talked to these kids. These kids were what, Jack? These kids were wildly motivated. I talked to these kids before they knew the body count of how many of their friends had been killed. No, Jack, no one had talked to them yet. They hadn't been indoctrinated by some left-wing group. They were motivated from what they saw and what they endured during that ordeal.
I don't doubt their sincerity.
Yes, you do, Jack.
I absolutely know these children are heartbroken, but I also know they probably do not have the logistical ability to plan a nationwide rally without it being hijacked by groups that already had the pre-existing anti-gun agenda.
Jack, it's just silly. They're already doing it. They're on buses going to the state legislature today. They're 17 years old. They can figure this out. But
they have the money for the bus, and they're ready to go. I mean, I just have a hard time believing it.
Okay, so Jack Kingston, who is a former GOP representative from Georgia and also was a Trump campaign surrogate, also traveled to Russia, the same time that Carter Page did. Just so fascinating, Jack. So I said to you yesterday that I had Jack's email because Jack had reached out to me for help with his book, okay, that he wants to write. And I was helpful to him. So I wrote him last night because, and listen, let me just tell you something. I saw Jack tweeting last night, and I went after him on Twitter too, where he accuses George Soros, he accuses the DNC, he accuses the Democratic Party, he accuses a woman named Allison Tant, who years ago was the party chair, the Democratic Party chair in Florida, and now works at the Children's Home Society. Yeah, Allison Tant works at the Children's Home Society these days, and she's married to a guy named Barry Tant, which Jack knows full well, because Jack works at Patton Boggs, which is a giant lobby shop, which is why he went to Russia to open the business, because he was telling Russians that, Trump, when he gets elected, will take the sanctions off Russia. Seriously. Never brought that up because, why mess with Jack Kingston? But, he went after Allison Tant. Well, Barry Tant is Allison's husband. Allison's husband, Barry, was on the George W. Bush 2000 legal team. Okay, he helped George Bush in the election thing, and works for Greenberg Traurig, which is also probably the biggest lobby shop in the history of lobby shops. And I know this because Howard was the managing partner at Greenberg Traurig. That I know everything about. So I wrote him back, and I showed him that the people that were helping these kids were the League of Women Voters and the PTA. And, George Clooney gave $500,000. Oprah matched it and gave them $500,000 to help pay for the buses and all this stuff. And somebody else gave another $500,000. Hollywood people are helping these kids. So I wrote to Jack. I guess I'm up against the break. He actually, it's stunning, man. He actually denies that he did or said or tweeted what he did and said and tweeted. He actually denied it. And yes, I invited him on the show. Think he'll show up? Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.